we have our another new episodes. We have our new friends, Mr. Brian. This is our 781 episodes. We have our world famous speaker, Mr. Donald. We will discuss on understanding disaster insurance. World Talent Economy Forum, we focus on emerging economy. Definitely, we are getting a lot of support from developed world through dialogue. So, we are doing a lot of projects in developing world. Right now, we are focusing on South Asia, like in India, Bangladesh, and these kind of countries. And we definitely want to solve these disaster issues. I know this topic is very complex, but maybe we can discuss something which may be helpful for our audience, especially in emerging economy. First, uh, I want to give chance our new friend, Mr. Brian. What do you think about disaster management? We do focus on disaster insurance, but first you can define about climate change, disaster management. I know you are expert of healthcare, so you can share your thought.
I'm Brian. I'm a nurse practitioner, and I treated a lot of people during COVID and using telehealth technology. So that's my background. Telehealth.
Okay, okay, okay. Uh, Mr. Donald, what you want to share about this topic?
Well, my wife, who's in the other room right now, is a nurse practitioner who she sees a lot of people in person, but she does telehealth too. She at least one day at work, she's sitting in her office there on the computer talking to people. So I know what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great job. Hey, anyway, well, disasters are becoming more and more frequent, obviously, because of the climate changing, and they are going to get even more frequent. Like just the first thing that people are interested in is themselves, obviously. So I'll start talking about what's been happening here. California has been in the worst drought that it's had in 1,000 years or something like that, which then ended with one of the worst rainstorms it's had in hundreds of years. And so that's what we're expecting in the future is a combination of extremely dry years punctuated by extremely wet years. And we're faced with a question of how to save that water for save the water we get in the wet years so we can use it in the dry years, and also deal with the issues that happen because of the rapid or the extreme fluctuations in the climate. One of the consequences of extremely dry years is that we have fires, which are devastating and burn down entire towns. And then one of the consequences of the wet years is that we wind up having floods. In fact, there's when the colonists first came to California, there was the biggest lake in the west of in the whole West was a lake called Tulare Lake, which is in the Central Valley of California. And the lake was drained and a series of levees channeled the rivers that filled the lake, and those so they channeled them so that they didn't fill the lake anymore, and the water was shunted out to the ocean. And because of the extreme rains we've been having, that lake is actually coming back. But there's farmland in the lake and houses and farms and things like that in the lake, which are now starting to get to be underwater. And that's just an example of what's happening all over the world. I know Bangladesh has had intense flooding, and Bangladesh is very low-lying and very susceptible to sea level rise. It's very susceptible to storm surges, which is when the yeah, when the winds blow the water so that basically the sea level isn't exactly rising, but effectively the sea level rises a great deal, and it backs up the rivers and causes extreme flooding, and uh, that is multiplied by every country in the world. If you look anywhere in the world, in and it's not just so it does it in unexpected ways, because the way that the jet stream is changing, it causes extreme cold in places, because people say, well, how could it be colder if the world is warming? And the answer is just think about it. If you start getting the wind from the poles, like Antarctica, where it gets 60 below zero, well, okay, it gets 10 degrees warmer, 20 degrees warmer, so it's only 40 below zero. Well, 40 below zero is still darn cold, so it's warmer, but it's still cold. And what's happening is that the wind, the force of the winds that keep it there is declining, because the difference in the heat between the poles and the equator is not as great, so that the force of the winds is less, and so everything's kind of mushing together a little bit, which is a problem. So anyway, that's kind of the high level description of the climate change. So then the question gets to be is, what do you do when that happens? And it's extremely expensive. One of the states in the United States, Florida, is constantly getting wiped out by hurricanes, and its average height above sea level is 50 feet. And so it's basically going to get rapidly worse. And it's going to, jokingly sink into the ocean, but it's not that big of a joke if you live there. And so in the United States, we have one of the most desirable places to live is right along the seacoast. It's wonderful. So all along the East Coast, the North Carolina Outer Banks, Florida, all over the world, people live next to the ocean. All along California, we have people living close to the ocean. But even where I live, not far from where I live, there's a road that runs right along the ocean. And the latest storms ate away the road. So the cliffs have come and the road isn't there anymore. So we have to, our town, just a regular little town has to spend millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars trying to fix the road. And, there's houses here. So when the road gets too close, the houses aren't going to be worth anything anymore. So all of this is happening. And then the question gets to be that you asked about is insurance. And the answer is the insurance companies go, forget it. We're just not going to insure you anymore. Tough beans. And the governments are picking up the slack. But the answer is you just can't insure people that live in places that are going to wash into the ocean. It just doesn't make any sense. So that's what I'm going to end with right now. And I really look forward to see what Brian has to say on that note. Oh, everybody froze. See, it's so cold that everybody froze. It's amazing.
So, Brian, are you with me?
Yeah, I'm here. Just need to plug in my device.
Okay, that happens.
All right, give me 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, hi. I was
Mr. Brian,
invited
are you with
last
me?
minute, so I was kind of caught off guard. So
Yeah, that happens.
yeah, yeah. So and yeah, these disasters are crazy between the the environmental ones, and then you got the pandemic, and now you got the new fungus, the killer fungus. You guys hear about that on the
A
news?
little.
And
Fill us in. Fill us in.
there's a new killer fungus that could kill people. Candida albinus, and I could send you a link to it. It was just in the news, and basically it can get transmitted from patient to patient, and it can be deadly. It's a high mortality rate. So you got that, and then there's articles that there's going to be a new version of COVID, because one of the other types of viruses, if these two viruses get combined, it's going to be very bad. Because COVID spreads a lot, but it's not as deadly. But then there's another pathogen that's more deadly, and then there's a whole article that if they get fused into a new one, that's going to be horrible. So, you just have to be prepared for disaster, both environmental and then health, and the health. So, yeah, it's crazy. So.
Yes. When we discuss about this disaster insurance, very important things, and especially recently the COVID actually gave a new thought for all of us. Uh, so, what do you think? Uh, how we can develop a policy to manage these things?
Manage what? What are you talking about for the next pandemic? You mean for future pandemic?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's your question? How how could we be prepared? Is that what you're saying?
Mr. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Mr. Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Donald, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you
I'm
fine.
asking question to Mr. Donald, but I do not know he can hear me or not.
I can hear you just fine.
I didn't
Okay, my
understand your
question with
question.
you, like,
Yeah, we can.
how can, my question is very simple. What should be the policy for healthcare to handle this kind of COVID situation?
I
This
don't
is
know.
one kind of disasters for many
It's
countries.
hard. It's hard. I don't know of a policy. I mean, it's just, I just feel it's important for everyone to have access to nebulizers. So, to me, a nebulizer is like a smoke detector. So, how many do you have a nebulizer in your house? So that's, very important to have that tool. That's my, so I just feel they should have access. Everyone should have access to nebulizers, and they're hard to get. So
They're expensive.
What?
They're expensive too. The drug companies charge a lot for them.
A nebulizer machine? No. You could get them very, it's under $100. I mean, sometimes you get them cheaper. Yeah. I recommend that everyone have the machine. You don't need the medication per se. But
it's the medication, I guess, that I was thinking.
No, the medication's expensive. All the pharmacies have the medications, but if you go to your local Walgreens, CVS, most of them don't have the nebulizer machine in stock. It's not like they have it, like if they have insulin, they give needles, but they have these nebulizer solutions, these vials, but they don't all have nebulizer machines. So it's challenging. I've seen a lot of people go to the hospital just because they couldn't get a nebulizer. So
why do you think everybody should have one of those machines?
Because it's like a fire extinguisher in your house. I mean, if you start getting sick and have respiratory issues, you can get treatments. You could get budesonide. You could get, albuterol. And those are critical to keeping people out of the hospital. Not everyone, a lot of folks do have to go to the hospital, but we can prevent a lot of hospitalizations. The issue is, it's like there's a fire in your kitchen. You're going to say, I'm going to Home Depot to buy a fire extinguisher. You need to have a fire extinguisher in your house, right? So, it happened to me. One of my kids, we had a toaster oven. He put a tortilla in there, walked away. I come in. Thank God I was home. There was a fire in the toaster, and luckily we had one of those mini fire extinguishers, sprayed it down. Thank God no one got hurt, but it's not like I'm going to go run to Home Depot, when there's a fire. So that's why, just after treating thousands of COVID patients, I just recommend everyone have a nebulizer in their house. So, they're hard to, they're not hard to get, but they're not fast to get. So usually they come via the mail. But if you're having trouble breathing, you don't have the 2 days to wait. So, for it to come. And if you go to Walgreens, a lot of times they don't carry it in stock. And you have to go to a medical supply shop. They close at 5 o'clock. You know what I mean? So it's a whole plethora of things. That's why I recommend everyone have a nebulizer. I have 2 in my house. Just like you have a smoke detector on every floor, right? I recommend a nebulizer in every house. So.
That's an interesting.
But the problem, what'd you say?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I have not heard that before. That's a very.
The problem is, it's not like you could go, even if we write the order for it, if a provider writes the order for it at Walgreens, it's not like all the Walgreens keep them in stock all the time. You're lucky if they do. And then they'll say, go to the medical supply shop, then you need an order. It's just a pain in the behind to get them. And if I could have one wish, it would be they give them out like to everyone, like, how they gave out like COVID kit, like testing at home. I think they should do that with nebulizers. So that's my only recommendation. So,
okay. Well,
it's like having a tool in your tool chest, it's like having a screwdriver. Hopefully you never need it, but you have it there. So a lot of people end up in the hospital because they wait too long till their breathing is shot, and then you can't wait a day or two when you're having respiratory issues. So that's all.
Cool. Well, going back to the policy thing, the problem with healthcare, or I wouldn't say problem so much, but a reality of healthcare is that people don't realize, don't think about, is that there's, no matter, even if you have cancer, there's a psychological component to it. It's not like engineering where you can measure it exactly and you cut it exactly and you weld it in this particular way, or an electric circuit where you can measure how many volts it is. You have to relate to the patient. The patient has to actually agree to do the things that the provider suggests that the provider do. So there has to be a relationship. That's when they say they're going to automate medicine, where computer programs are going to be able to all the medicine. That's ludicrous, because the providers have to develop a relationship of trust with the patients.
Eventually, AI will be your doctor.
It's a very, very complicated dance that the providers and the patients do with each other. And so you have to multiply that by all the people that there are in a country or in the world, where every single solitary person is interacting with their provider, but they're interacting with their family, they're interacting with websites on the internet. They're interacting with Facebook. They're interacting with all these different sources of information that they're getting, and making their judgments based on this just like complex, just amazing amount of stuff. And so any policy that we're ever going to come up with or make is going to somehow have to take that into account. And so the huge failure of COVID policy in the United States was a lot due to the fact that there were people who just wanted it to fail. I mean, and they worked hard to make it fail, because if it failed, then they would get political gain from it. And so it was more important to them to have it fail than it was to have it succeed. And so how can you, so I have to agree with Brian. It's really difficult to imagine how you could make a policy that could really be successful. Now, I will say that countries like Finland, where the country is, the people kind of believe in their country, and they believe that their government is actually working for them, and they believe that paying taxes is a good idea because they get something for it, and they believe all these things. They believe that if they work together, they're better off than if they fight each other. They do have things in that, and it's well known what works. The science, masks work, vaccinations work, all these things actually work. And so we can when we get a completely new thing like COVID, we don't know at first how well masks are going to work. We don't know at first how well all these things. We don't have a vaccination, but we do know that that viruses have to jump from person to person. So we do know that, like, the less people are close to each other, the less that they're going to pass them to each other. We do know certain things. And so we can, when there's a new pathogen, start doing the kinds of things that we know are going to make it spread less quickly as we learn more about it. But the people have to cooperate, and that's the bottom line there.
Yeah. True.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, these new mRNA vaccines are amazing. Yeah.
Mr. Daniel actually bring a new in hospitals. Candida auris, anything about that, Mr. Brian?
I can't hear you. The audio and video froze for a
Mr. Brian,
second.
can you hear me?
I can hear you. What'd you say?
Mr. Brian, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Our friend Mr. Daniel shared something. Yes, Mr. Daniel actually shared something. Do you know something about this problem in hospitals? Candida auris.
Oh, you're talking about Candida? Yeah, that's the new Candida auris is the new potential issue. There was multiple articles in the news last week that it can become a national problem. It's starting in hospitals, also nursing homes and stuff like that, but it spreads pretty easily. And it has a high mortality rate. I don't have the statistics memorized, but I believe it's over 50% or in that area. So it's a high mortality rate, and there's very little, not so many treatments for it. And the problem is it takes time to get diagnosed. So we'll see. And then, there's hemorrhagic fever that's happening. There's some cases in Africa, I believe I read, which is, that's dangerous as well. High mortality rate with hemorrhagic fever, I believe. From the research I've done, I'm not an expert at it, but, people can succumb to it within a very few days. Some people could pass away from hemorrhagic fever, I've heard. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. So it's important to treat early, and, hopefully everyone will do okay. So we just got to be careful.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Donald,
Well, I looked it up too, and it says that it's about a third death rate. Fortunately, it's not quite that high, but
I think I read 30
high.
to 45%. Yeah, I don't have it memorized, so
I know it's incredible. I know you mentioned that, so yeah, you were very close. So
it's a higher mortality than you would want, is what I'm trying.
Yeah, it's super high, a third, and it's also multi-drug resistant. So it's, as you said, it's really difficult to cure. It does not. It's a little like staph in a sense that it doesn't infect people who are healthy. You've got staph on your skin all the time, but it doesn't necessarily get into you and kill you. This also people's immune systems. So it's getting old people in nursing homes and things like that.
Right? Nursing homes and hospitals. Yeah. So,
yeah, it's right now, but
then, the staff could potentially be carriers and transmitting it from patient to patient. Now that everyone thinks the pandemic's over, no one's masking anymore. I'm neutral on masks, but everyone's going back to old school pre-COVID. So I hope that nothing bad happens, but there could be a plethora of things going on now that the pandemic's over, and we'll see. Hopefully, it won't be that big of an issue, but it has the potential to be.
Yeah, that worries me quite a bit, because when COVID, people think of COVID as just a respiratory illness, but it's not at all. It gets into every organ in your body, and even a case that you don't even know you have can cause damage to your kidney, liver, heart, brain, all over your body.
It can inflame the nerves. I've seen people have, like, healthy people, they get over COVID, now they have bilateral sciatica. We've had people who have, 3-4 months after having COVID, they have ringing in their ears. It affects the nervous system all different ways. There's brain fog. There's gut health. We find if people take probiotics, it helps, the gut health, the gut biome is also related to the brain health. So we've seen some cases of, if you improve the gut health, it may help the brain fog. So brain fog is a long haul COVID side effect from that. So it affects everyone differently. But yeah.
So we don't even know what the 10 years from now.
No, we don't know the long term effect. Some people lose their taste of smell. You could do olfactory therapy, which is you could do that on your own. You smell lemons, and you would kind of reprogram your body with smells. Like you smell peanut butter, and then you smell you call it lemon. So there's olfactory therapy for people that lose their taste of the smelling. Same thing with taste, and so we'll see. I don't know. We don't know the long-term effects. So
So pretending it's over is. I still see some people that mask, which is actually smart. Actually, virologists that I know still mask. I mean, people that are actually very, very top experts still mask. They do.
Masking does help, but it theoretically could go through the mask. It's so small, so. Yeah. It's not a mask, or not a bulletproof sheet, like a force field, like a shield.
Right. They reduce the probability.
They reduce it, but it's not like 100. It's not like you're in the force field. You know,
Right.
not like Star Trek where you have the shields, and they're shooting a photon torpedo and and it blocks it all. But yeah. So we'll see what happens. So
I think that the new mRNA vaccines are a really great technological thing because it does allow us to make vaccines much more quickly than we've been doing it in the past. So
the new technology,
the new technology, it's really exciting, and so that's a good bullet to getting these things. It's incredibly sad that the ignorance of people, thinking that it's modifying their DNA, and Bill Gates put microchips in them. I mean,
oh, that's insane. I agree. But some people do have side effects from it, so I think people.
Yeah,
just
you get side effects from regular vaccines.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah. So yeah. So I'm.
I mean, I got the shingles vaccine and it hurt like hell, and that's just a regular vaccine.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So we'll see. It definitely helps. So let's see what happens. So
I mean, if somebody died and made me leader of the world, I'd have a whole consortium. I'd fund a consortium of universities all over the world that work together, studying vaccines and pathogens and learning how to make vaccines as quickly as possible and working on it every second of the day. I'd spend as much as we're spending on defense. I mean, it seems to be money really, really well spent instead of starving these guys and insulting them and calling them names and accusing them of, lying and stealing our money and all the kind of stuff that we do. It'd be,
yeah.
As far as policy, that's what I do, but.
Yeah, I agree.
One thing, Mr. Donald, like disaster insurance. In USA, is there any policy like disaster insurance in California? In
Insurance?
Is there
like
any
insurance?
That?
Insurance has layers. So like in California, we have earthquakes. And you never know when there's going to be an earthquake or how bad it's going to be. We had an earthquake yesterday. It was a teeny earthquake. I mean, for some parts of the world, it seemed like a huge earthquake, but for us, it's no big deal because homes are built in a way that they're.
What was the scale? What was the earthquake?
4.7. 4.7. Yeah.
But your house is fine, right?
Oh yeah, everybody's is because we build it in a way where we basically, the houses are all basically frames with stucco or something on the outside, so they wobble in the earthquake.
What about the drywall? Do you get cracks in your drywall?
No, it doesn't. No, because it just wobbles. No? It never.
You would think it would crack all over the place.
Drywall is pretty flexible. Yeah, drywall is pretty flexible. Yeah, it's pretty flexible.
Usually cracks in the seams where the two pieces get connected with tape. So, no?
Nah.
Okay.
Doesn't it? It just kind of flexes with the whole thing. It doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't crack.
We were in a 7.1 earthquake, and the only thing that happened was a drinking glass fell out of the cupboard and broke, and it cracked our brick chimney, and we had to get that fixed. But that was it. And and the reason and then they bolt the house to the foundations, because if they don't do that, the entire house falls off the foundations, and that did happen to a few houses. But anyway, the point is we build in a way that makes it safer for earthquakes, so it's not as big a problem. However, regular insurance companies don't insure you for earthquakes, because if there was a 8 earthquake or something like that, no matter what we did, the amount of damage would be so incredibly much that it'd wipe an insurance company right out. So
So earthquakes aren't covered by your homeowner's insurance, right?
no, there's a state, the state has a policy that you
Oh,
can
the
get.
state. Yeah.
Right. So we can
Do you
get
have that?
yeah. I
How
think
much is
the
that?
mortgage, what? It's
How
not
much
very
is it a
expensive.
year?
It's not very expensive. It's a couple $100. It's not
Ah,
that much. Yeah. But everybody has all the mortgage companies make everybody get it. So
yeah, good.
so and then we have a house up in a very fire prone area, and our house is actually right next to the airport. So airports don't burn. And this airport is where the fire people stage when there's fires up there. So we're like this, and we've done all this stuff to make the house be safe from fires. And so our insurance isn't too bad. But um, a lot of people in that neighborhood, their insurance went up through the roof. So basically, the insurance companies just, if you're in a place that's not safe, they charge you a lot more. And so people on the coast of North Carolina and in Florida and things like that, their insurance rates are just going up and up and up and up, so that the insurance companies can basically, they calculate your insurance rates based on your risk. And basically what winds up happening is that the insurance isn't, the insurer of last resort is the state, the government in the United States. And so when people's houses or a town burns down or something like that, the U.S. government winds up stepping in and taking a lot of, paying a lot of the money that it takes to rebuild it. But ultimately, people have to just stop living in places that are too dangerous.
Mr. Brian, you want to share something about disaster insurance? Mr. Brian? Okay, Mr. Donald, what do you think like about this disaster insurance? Is there any hope we can develop something like that, or is it helpful? Like Bangladesh, natural disasters. So, can
Well,
we develop some policy for that? Is there any advice?
well, I think the same thing is true. If it's true in the United States, I mean, I think it's true anywhere in the world that we're we're going to have to just stop living in places where we can't live. So we're going to have, so the main policy is to try and figure out how we're going to basically move cities and move people and move to places that are safer. And I mean, that's one of the biggest things, is that people they're they're not thinking about that. They're not planning that. And I think we know enough now, we can predict, like, with some degree of accuracy, what areas are just going to not be livable in 20 years or 30 years or 50 years. Because how long is it going to take to move a city? You can't do it in a week. You can't do it in 5 years. It's something that we have to plan for over a long period of time, because if you want to move somebody, you're probably going to be moving it to some place where people already live. And so you're going to it's a very slow and complicated process. But insurance isn't going to do it if every single solitary, every few years it gets wiped out and you have to rebuild it. That you can't do that. It's just not going to work.
Uh, so that when care things, need to do more research on maybe like healthcare, or what is happening in the USA? I think you are not so far from Stanford. So
For some reason, you're kind of breaking up right now, and I can't quite hear what you're saying.
can you hear me?
Now I can. No, I can't hear you.
Mr. Donald, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Yeah, I couldn't for a while.
What is your concluding read this session?
Well,
Missing remarks.
just kind of think about what insurance is. You have a group of people who pool their resources to make a stash of money, basically of money that's available to them to in case something bad happens, so that they can use that money to fix whatever bad thing happened, whether it's a health problem, whether it's a natural disaster like a hurricane or a flood, whatever bad things happens, that's what the insurance money is for. And the way the system works is that, there's levels of insurance companies, levels of insurance, and at the highest level, it winds up being the governments. And the question is the problem is that if there are so many problems happening, that pool of money only works for the amount of problems until it runs out. I mean, the pool of money only lasts until the pool of money runs out. And if there's so many problems that the pool of money can't solve all of those problems, then it's not going to work. It can't. It's not physically possible for it to be able to solve all the problems. And in a very, very, very rich country like the United States, if the government has more ability to keep going and solving problems that it maybe shouldn't have to be solving, and in the way that they're doing it in the United States is they're raising the insurance rates so that makes the pool of money bigger, but in doing that, the people who are paying the insurance get to be the point they're paying so much money that they can't afford to live there anymore. So that makes it so then it isn't a problem anymore. If they're not there, then nothing bad can happen to them, and so it doesn't cost anything. And so that's a way that the insurance that you can kind of solve that problem by raising the insurance rates. But if you take a country that's poor like Bangladesh, and the government doesn't have a lot of, I mean, it's the same exact issue, but the pool of resources you have to fix the problem is going to get depleted. And so really the only solution that you have to do, the only thing that you can really do is to stop the problems. You can't insurance fixes the problems, but you got to make it so that you don't have the problems in the first place, because you just don't have enough resources to keep fixing problems that happen over and over again. So the only real policy that can possibly work is to look at where the problems are happening and are going to happen worse and worse and worse in the future, and change things like move people, build levees, do whatever you can to mitigate those problems so the problems don't occur, because you just don't have the resources to keep fixing them over and over. And that's really the only thing you can do. Well, one of the problems is poor internet connections. I'm just going to take off here. Always nice to see everybody, and I'll see you next time I'm on the show.
Thank you.